We're going to talk about reversing the birth, reverse the birth order, right? The natural thing in a lot of Middle Eastern cultures, and especially back in the biblical times, was to give the double blessing to the oldest son and then a normal blessing to everybody else. And that was so that the older son would take care of and kind of be the new patriarch for that family. But you're going to see inside of here, and you learn in our Genesis studies, that sometimes that gets reversed, and the younger gets the bigger blessing than the older, and they kind of reverse that birth order. So we're going to pick up right here in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 20 in the Faith Hall of Fame, the Bible Hall of Fame. Here we go. Hebrews 11, chapter 11, verse 20. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. Now, Isaac favored Esau, and he wanted him to get the blessing. But Esau willingly gave away his birthright because he was hungry and he chose something that was fleshly. He was like, I got to satisfy this hunger, this burning sensation to eat in my stomach, so I'm going to give away my birthright so that I can get some food. And Jacob ended up with the birthright. And then Isaac was actually tricked into giving that birthright to Jacob. So Esau had already given it up. Jacob also needed to get it from Isaac. Isaac did not like the situation when he found out that Jacob got the blessing instead of Esau. But guess what? By faith, he remembered that God had told him that the nation of Esau would serve the nation from Isaac. And so he had faith and he trusted in God's sovereignty. So you had Esau and Isaac, the birth order, but it got reversed for the blessing standpoint, for the patriarch standpoint, because God had said the nation of Esau, the older child, would actually serve the nation of Isaac. So he would get the double blessing, and that's how it came. So Isaac had faith, right? This is all about faith. It's really understanding that no one was saved by deeds or by obedience to the law or by obedience to anything, but by faith. No one today is saved by deeds or what you do or how good you are or how you benchmark yourself against someone else or who you benchmark yourself against, right? Oh, I'm better than that person down the street. I'm better than Hitler. I'm better than blah, blah, blah. No, it doesn't matter. Are you better than God? No. Are you perfect? No. Have you sinned? Yes. Therefore, you are disqualified from getting into heaven, period, except by the grace of God. Through faith. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. Ephesians 2:8. So what's an application? Well, Dad was involved in their lives, blessing them, blessing his children. Are you involved in your children's lives? Loving on them, being a blessing and encouragement for the things of God, not just being involved, just coaching or doing stuff, but for the purpose of proclaiming the gospel, of showing leading your family, being around your children, letting them know that you love them, right? We want to be present, not just physically present, but emotionally and mentally present. But in our age today, one of the biggest problems with fathers and mothers is we may be first, a lot of them aren't physically present, right? They're spending too much time at the office, too much time golfing, too much time watching TV or something. Let's be physically present, step one. Step two is to be mentally present. In this day and age of the iPhone, which people would just be like, you know what, I'm just going to scroll the news for a minute. A couple things can happen. It can just take them, or they're looking at Reels or TikTok or something, and they just keep going and going, and they look up, and they missed all that time with the kids. Now it's kids' bedtime, something like that. Or it makes them frustrated. They see something on social media. They see something on their newsreel that just makes them mad, usually about politics or something, right? Sometimes for a sports team, usually about politics. But that is a distraction, right? The devil wants you to be taken away mentally and emotionally from that time with your children so that he can just take you away. We need to be there both physically and mentally, going deep into the lives of our children. So let's encourage each other in that, and let's encourage our spouse in that, and be there both physically and emotionally for our child. Put down the phone, right? We want to prioritize relationships over money and technology. Again, that's prioritizing relationships over money and technology. Verse 21, by faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph and worshiped, leaning on the top of his staff. So here above, we were talking about Abraham. Then just a minute ago, we talked about Isaac, and he had 2 sons. Now we're talking about Jacob, which is the younger one who ended up with the bigger blessing. And then he's dying, and he had a bunch of children, right? He had the 12 tribes of Israel. And it says he was blessing each of the sons of Joseph and worshiped, leaning on the top of his staff. So again, Jacob, in as many mistakes and bad decisions as he made in his life, he still was saved by faith. No one is beyond reach. No one is beyond the reach of God, having a softened heart to accept Jesus as their Lord and Savior. All right. And a lot of people in the Jewish nation will celebrate Jacob, right? But he made a lot of mistakes, and that's okay. We can still celebrate people and understand that it's by faith. It is not by deeds. If it were by deeds, none of us would get in. If we were doing it by deeds and our deeds, not a single one of us would qualify because you couldn't do enough, right? So even Jacob had faith. He was saved by faith. It says, by faith, Jacob. So we want to remember that. Then we go here, verse 22, by faith, Joseph. So we had by faith, Isaac, by faith, Jacob, by faith, Joseph, right? And it says, by faith, Joseph, when he was dying, made mention of the departure of the children of Israel and gave instructions concerning his bones. So Joseph, right, is about as close as you can get to a biblical character, a real person, of course, but a biblical person, biblical character who is a really great prototype of Jesus, right? He was not liked by those around him, his brothers. He was left for dead, right? They left him for dead in the wilderness. He was persecuted. He was beaten. He was enslaved. He was treated horribly. People lied about him, talked badly about him. But yet God, in his sovereignty, kept raising up Joseph in this path. He used this test to see how strong Joseph was and to make him stronger. Just like when we work out, we work out our muscles, we break them down so that they grow back stronger. God puts us in these tests, and he certainly did with Joseph. And Joseph just kept growing stronger and stronger. God had this woven tapestry, this path for Joseph to rise up. And we see this redemption, this restoration, and he became second in all the land of Egypt. Just an unbelievable story. And that's Jesus, right? Jesus was hated. He was despised. He was beaten. They wanted to kill him. He was just treated horribly. They called him a liar. They said things against him. He was killed on the cross, and yet he rose from the dead. And he paid the penalty for our sins. No one else could do that. So Joseph here is just a great prototype of Jesus, a kind of a foreshadowing, a parallel, if you will, where you can look at people and see traits that we want to emulate. And Joseph exhibited a lot of those traits. And verse 23, by faith, here we go again, by faith, Moses, when he was born, was hidden 3 months by his parents because they saw he was a beautiful child. And they were not afraid of the king's command. So Moses was hidden because there was a decree out to kill all these babies, and they didn't want him to die. So they ended up putting him in a basket, floating him down the river, trusting that God would take care of him, not knowing, but trusting by faith, right? It takes a lot of faith to do that with your kid. Maybe a little bit easier, slightly easier, if you know the alternative is he's just going to be killed. Maybe a slightly better alternative, but still doesn't make it easy. Very difficult decision. Requires a ton of faith. And they saw that he was a beautiful child. And yes, every child is beautiful, regardless of how they look, regardless of their abilities. Every child is beautiful. It's just a miracle of God, right? Children exist because of the miracle of God. If anybody wants to say, I've never seen a miracle, just look at a child being born in someone's belly before being born and taking a breath on earth, living inside of a woman, just amazing. And then to be at that birth, if you've ever had that privilege, that honor, or do in the future, it'll change you. Like you see that it's a miracle, just unbelievable. And it says they were not afraid of the king's command, right? That their children, that all the children were going to be killed. They just had this faith and this hope to hold on to, right? You can look around today and the world seems scary. From a fleshly, earthly standpoint, it is. There's violence, there's hatred against the police, there's gangs, there's abortion, there's all of these things that are just so out there and so horrible and nasty. But guess what? It's all part of God's plan. Not that he wants to see suffering, but he is going to work through that evil that the devil and his demons are orchestrating and tempting people and that free will and making bad decisions. God's going to work through all of that with his sovereignty. So we just want to continue by faith, by faith, by faith. That's how all these verses lately and many to come are starting. By faith, Moses, by faith, he, by faith, they, by faith, the walls, by faith, Isaac, by faith, Jacob. We want to focus on that faith. So have faith in it. And remember to be a wonderful leader to your children. If you have children right now, doesn't matter if they're at home or out of the house, but be a great leader, be a servant leader, love on them, be present physically and be present emotionally. Check out our podcast, Daily Verse by Verse. You can search it on just about any podcast platform, Daily Verse by Verse. Pastor Mike Massey, I hope you have a blessed day.